Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone. Now we've come to the part 4 of OWASP top 10 for cloud. And many of you know about what is OWASP, which is Open Web Application Security Project. The URL for accessing Open Web Application Security Project is owasp.org. This has been very prominent for a very long time. It initially started with application and then moved into mobile and got IoT, and now it has got cloud, and then many other things are also expected to come in the Open Web Application Security Project consortium. And this top 10 vulnerabilities or top 10 issues, top 10 risks that are being listed are being respected and followed across the globe by the security fraternity. And in this case, we are going to talk about the top 10 cloud risk parameters, starting with accountability and data risk and goes until non-production environment exposure. We have about 10 different slides to discuss about these things in simple pointers. Of course, this has been there for a very long time, and a lot of the top 10 have attained a good amount of solution also existed. But still, we will discuss it as if this is still open for all of us to consider, and we could also try and amend a lot of effective parameters into place. This is a very old data that I wanted to bring it to you so that you could go to owasp.org and try and compare the native cloud issues that are available for from 2022, which is last year. And this will also give you a good level of comparison to arrive and to also designate and implement in the current requirement of cloud computing environment. So let's move into number one, which is accountability and data risk. So the word itself says who is going to be accountable and whose data is at risk. So generally, when you say accountability, it is supposed to be a shared responsibility. In the previous part, we also tend to understand and see what is customer responsibility, what is shared responsibility, and what is a cloud provider's responsibility. So when you say cloud provider's responsibility, there are certain. When you say customer, there are certain. There are shared as well. But in this case, accountability, depending on the data, depending on the access level, depending on the service model that is being taken, it is split. As I said, this is absolutely generic. So we are going to not touch any specific parameters or any specific use cases into it, because after we complete this, we'll also move to the best practices of cloud security. So we will try and see if we could combine both and give you a clarity incorporated all together, like combination and working into an incorporation. So cloud computing providers are responsible for certain things, and owners are cloud data owners are responsible for certain things. So make sure that whose data is at risk. It is always the customer data which is at risk. So customer will definitely have to take the maximum responsibility at one side. At the same time, cloud provider will also have to take responsibility to their end. That is exactly where it defines and understand the responsibility for all the 10 OWASP cloud risks. Service level agreements plays a very, very important role. Writing the service level agreement is an art in this case, and it has to be well written, well accepted, and well read by the legal authorities and approve and take up a role with the cloud service provider between the CSP, the cloud brokers, and the customer as such. Second one, user identity federation. Who holds the user identity? Who is responsible for logging in, and at what level the identity will have to be provided, the user access to be provided. The cloud provider will provide root access in uh, platform as a service or infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service is entire infrastructure where the cloud provider say it's all yours and you take care of everything. But in a SaaS model, it is different. So according to the model, these things gets differentiated. So I've delivered same 10 slides 5 years ago with more detail, because a lot of things today are addressed, a lot of things that are looked upon, as I said in the start. But still, I'm trying to look at it from an aspect where it is not regulated, it is not being properly followed in that notion, right? But it is not absolutely right. A lot of things are addressed. So let's try and identify the user identity with identity access management, privilege access management kind of solutions were not very popular 5 years ago, but today those are very, very popular in cloud security principles, in cloud considerations in the previous part. we've discussed in detail, and we are also now aware of what it is and who's going to protect, which is a shared responsibility and which is an open responsibility. The third one being on the legal and regulatory compliance. When you say legal, law of the land comes in, regulator comes in, data model comes in, PII comes in. So use of cloud computing, compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. In fact, 5 years ago versus today, I mean, drastic change. Being in the domain for more than a decade now, we understood how things are changing, how information security has taken a bigger role in cybersecurity, how WannaCry as one ransomware attack affecting 130 plus countries has opened up a lot of eyes in the market. Even today, in boardroom, people or the CXOs are still not giving importance to cybersecurity, or still happening. But it will change. Eventually, everything will have to change. Change is the only thing that's permanent. When you talk about legal and regulatory compliance, I only say it's change and accept it. The fourth one is business continuity and resilience. We know what is business continuity, how backups are to be looked up, how disaster recoveries are to be looked at, where it is to be stored, how it is to be managed. When you are with one cloud, do you have to store the backup, or with disaster recovery with another cloud, or the same cloud will be hosting it in different location? So those are the parameters that we need to consider. And remember, implementing a plan for managing a disaster or absolutely in uh, in an event where it is not happening. It should not happen in terms of it, right? So unforeseen events is what we generally mention it. So that is also a parameter that we need to consider for stronger data recovery and stronger data access using disaster recovery. 5, user privacy and secondary usage of data. Who is the owner of the data? Who is being provided access? If a third party is being provided access, if a customer data has been given to a third party for access, who is going to take up the responsibility, and the transparency and how the communication is going to take place, whether egress, ingress communication, inbound, outbound, on the line, ZTNA coming into existence, resources allocation, resources identification, login credentials, multi-factor authentication. All of these things today plays a very important role with user privacy and secondary usage of data. So a lot to discuss, a lot to identify, a lot to improve over a period of time, because silo solutions are not the solutions anymore. It has to work along with multiple solutions, but working with multiple solutions are also causing trouble, like zero-day vulnerabilities, or a port being open, or a service is not being properly run, or update process is not happened. So consideration in aspects is pretty high. 6, service and data integration. So what services? We are talking about SAML kind of environment between cloud transformation, cloud movement. We talk about digital transformation. Now digital transformation is going one step beyond, from where local environment, on-prem environment to cloud was more appreciated as digital transformation. But today cloud transformation has even taken place from one cloud to another cloud, one SaaS platform to platform as a service, one platform as a service to one infrastructure as a service. So within cloud, this is happening. So integrating the cloud services on premises, and where we have now community clouds, we have a combination of private and public cloud. Data plays a very important role, and the organization takes this role. Encryption is the most important thing, and services and data integration is definitely still a very important aspect to discuss and consider when you talk about authentication, authorization mechanisms in play. Of course, we have OTP, we have MFA things. Multi-tenancy and physical security. We know physical security better, but multi-tenancy is still to be considered when I'm going to provide one server to multiple organizations depending upon their user level. Organizations or customer will not be aware of it. Only the cloud service provider will be aware of it. This is more from a cloud service provider's responsibility rather than an organization's responsibility, because they just rent and use the data. So cloud provider typically hosts multiple customers on the same physical infrastructure. Vulnerabilities still are there. We've seen in the previous chapter, part 2, how many vulnerabilities were there. In part 3, we've also discussed about how many breaches have taken place in each of the 11 issues that were around there. So we need to consider, we need to spend effective time in understanding it, and how we are going to implement appropriate security controls, and how are we going to mitigate the risk and fix the risk permanently plays an important role. Multi-tenancy still open for discussions. Incidents analysis and forensics. So it's more from incident analysis. So organizations need to able to detect and respond, where we have monitoring solutions, very important. At the same time, need to plan effectively and store the data with adequate encryption with cryptographic keys, and have forensic evidence, forensic investigation made ready. Even it could be a third party if you don't have the affordability to spend on a forensic investigator. This is still required a third party signature. A third party contract is always adequate and appreciated in incident analysis and forensic investigation. The next one would be more from infrastructure security. It's all about how we patch, how we manage the network in infrastructure as a service, and how this is connecting to the platform as a service and effectiveness. So this is still a baseline for all of us to go through and run it outrightly. So open for storage, open for network, open for software defined networking effectively coming into existence. SDN connecting to core networks, still beautiful concept, beautiful for research, R&D, and effective even today. And last one, non-production environment exposure. So exposure of non-production servers are often less secure because we think it is not required or it is not going to be available for anybody. But there is one way or the other a vulnerability that is going to open up where patching is not properly happening. The non-production environment exposure could cause enough trouble for an organization to bring them down. Even sometimes legal fines can even be incorporated because you have some data that is stored, you don't know what that particular data is. It could be a PII or it could be any data that it belongs to. So with this, we will conclude the OWASP top 10 cloud risks. As I said, I've ran it in about 10 minutes time, but there are a lot to discuss, a lot to identify. But this is enough for R&D and for you to brainstorm yourself and go read about the cloud native aspects which is published in 2022. Thank you. We will now move forwards into the best practices, which is also part 4 of second level, and that will also give you understanding of what it is and how it is.